Hamas is largely defeated while Hezbollah is humiliated, but that might just make them more dangerous. Sunday morning's preemptive strike by the IDF caused massive damage to Hezbollah despite the attempt by Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah to dismiss it, while his claims that the IDF bases were damaged is easily proven false. However, there are some worrying signs that Hezbollah is extending the range of its attacks into Israel and is threatening to launch even more destructive attacks against the Jewish state in the days ahead. Meanwhile, Hamas let us know that they're still here by firing a long-range rocket at Rishon LeZion near Tel Aviv in the heart of Israel. Security operations continue in Judea and Samaria with an unusual attack reported near Bethlehem, just south of Jerusalem. In diplomatic news, the negotiations for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the return of the remaining Israeli hostages appear to have fallen apart, with Hamas refusing to budge on the issue of hostages and Israel refusing to cave into demands for a withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor bordering between Gaza and Egypt. Meanwhile, there are reports that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has abandoned the tunnels and is trying to hide among Gaza's civilian population disguised as a woman. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 325th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all its terror proxy groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. We have some new details about the preemptive strike that the IDF launched against Hezbollah positions on Sunday morning. The IDF has been watching Hezbollah's movements closely for weeks, ever since the assassination of their chief of staff, Fouad Shukar, in Beirut last month. The IDF was waiting to see the signs that a large rocket and missile strike was being prepared. When those signs appeared, the IDF force was ready with 100 aircrafts armed and in the air. A statement by a senior American official confirmed that the United States had also been monitoring Hezbollah movements and assisted in the Israeli intelligence efforts, but no U.S. military forces took an active part in Sunday morning's preemptive strike. However, the intelligence support provided by the American military for this preemptive strike is not the only way that the Pentagon is supporting Israel in this war. On Monday morning, the Ministry of Defense announced that the 500 aircraft loaded with military supplies from America landed in Israel. According to the statement, the resupply operation is a collaboration between the DOPP's International Shipping Unit, the Israel Ministry of Defense, the mission of the United States, the IDF's Planning Directorate, and the Israeli Air Force. Through this operation, over 50,000 tons of military equipment have been delivered to Israel via 500 flights and 107 sea shipments. The statement added that the equipment purchased and transported into Israel includes armored vehicles, munitions, ammunition, personal protection gear, and medical equipment, which are crucial for sustaining the IDF's operational capabilities during the ongoing war. In any event, on Sunday evening, the IDF spokesperson's office gave a presentation showing the damage that the preemptive strike did to Hezbollah's rocket launching capabilities. According to this presentation, over 270 Hezbollah positions were struck, resulting in the destruction of an estimated 6,000 rockets and dozens of launchers. 6 terrorists are believed to have been eliminated in these strikes as well, bringing the total of Hezbollah operatives eliminated last week to 30. The IDF announced that this activity on Sunday morning also caused significant damage to Hezbollah's UAV array, and many dozens of UAVs were hit on the ground, and the Iron Dome anti-rocket defense system intercepted a number of UAVs flying towards the center of Israel. The IDF spokesman also stated that Hezbollah managed to launch about 230 rockets and more than 20 unmanned aerial vehicles. Most of them fell on their way to Israeli territory, landing in open areas, or were intercepted by the defense systems of the Air Force and Navy ships. Despite a claim by Hezbollah leader Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, no rockets or UAVs managed to hit any IDF bases. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said during his visit to the IDF's Operations Command, "We have thrown Hezbollah off balance and its operation has failed. This morning's attack sends a regional message. We are determined to remove any threat in any arena and at any time. We must take a comprehensive view of the arena and to stand up for our goals in the north and in the south." At the same time, in this speech this evening, Hezbollah's Secretary General referred to his organization's attack, which included firing at targets in northern Israel and at the Golan Heights. Nasrallah claimed that the rocket fire was intended to allow the UAVs to cross the border. According to him, some of the UAVs were launched for the first time from the El Beka area in Lebanon. Nasrallah added, "In our response, we were careful not to harm civilians, even though Israel attacked civilians in the Chia. We decided that our targets would be militarily and not civilian or infrastructure, and that they would be related to the elimination of Faoud Shukar, one of them close to Tel Aviv." The IDF attacks in southern Lebanon continued even after the preemptive strike and throughout the morning. To make a comment of my own about what we just saw, I believe that the IDF's preventative action early in the morning was both strong and elegant. It was also a spectacular strategic success with global implications. If Hezbollah had succeeded in launching a large-scale attack, Israel would have been obliged to launch an ever bigger counterstrike, which could have very easily escalated into a regional confrontation. Instead, the source of the tension, Hezbollah, has been slapped down hard, and it will not be so easy for them to threaten regional stability again anytime soon. Although they are still very dangerous. On the one hand, Nasrallah's rather pathetic speech last night illustrated that he is not as strong as he used to be. The false narrative he presented with a perfectly straight face didn't fool anyone. On the contrary, it is very obvious that he lacks either the will or the ability to follow through on his threats. In the final analysis, the operational successes of the IDF, including the elimination of Faoud Shukar, the elimination of Muhammad Def, the elimination of Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil, and the successes in deterring Hezbollah and defending the northern border, provide an excellent platform for achieving the goals of the war. However, we must not get ahead of ourselves, as there are still difficult days ahead of us and much more work remains to be done. A reminder of this came Monday morning when an air raid alarm was sounded in Hamat Gader near Tiberias. This represents a new extension of the range of Hezbollah weapons fired into Galilee in the northern part of Israel. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on developments on Israel's northern border. But to stay up to date in real time, please look for TBN Israel on all of your social media platforms and follow us, and most importantly, subscribe to this YouTube channel to know what is happening in Israel. Switching our focus to the southern front, a rocket was fired from the Gaza Strip and landed Sunday evening in an open field in Rishon LeZion, which is located near Tel Aviv in the heart of Israel. It was the first such rocket attack on the Gush Dan region since January 29th. A 26-year-old Israeli woman was moderately wounded when she fell while running to a bomb shelter, but otherwise there were no injuries or damage caused by this rocket. Hamas claimed responsibility for the attack, adding that they plan to fire more weapons into the Tel Aviv area. In the Gaza Strip, Division 252 forces have been operating in the central corridor of Gaza for the past 2 months. 3 brigade combat teams operate under the command of the division: the Jerusalem Brigade, number 16, the Harel Brigade, number 10, and the Fire Brigade, number 454. So far, the forces of the division have eliminated over 200 terrorists and destroyed hundreds of terrorist infrastructure in the area. The fighting with Hamas continues at high intensity, and in the last few days, the IDF has suffered several casualties, mostly from booby traps and explosives. Although major combat operations and large-scale maneuvers have come to an end and Hamas has been totally defeated, the remnants of the terrorist army are refusing to surrender and have instead decided to wage a guerrilla campaign against the IDF troops. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on these developments, and we ask you to help us by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. Take a minute to look for the follow button and click it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to help us spread the truth further. Switching our focus again to events in Judea and Samaria. In the last 24 hours, IDF soldiers managed to stop an attempt by terrorists to infiltrate the city of Ariel. The two terrorists arrived at the entrance of the city in a vehicle from the direction of the Tapuach intersection. They drove against the flow of traffic and attempted to ram an IDF soldier who were manning the entrance, but the soldiers opened fire on the vehicle and eliminated the terrorists before they could do any damage, although one soldier was moderately wounded in the incident. Further to the south, an explosive device was detonated on a civilian bus near the village of Marcha Rabach near Bethlehem. The explosion caused damage to the bus, but no injuries. The IDF spokesman announced that following the incident, fighters are deploying roadblocks and pursuing the terrorists. Although no one was hurt in this incident, the IDF views it as serious for two reasons. First, the city of Bethlehem and its surroundings are traditionally very quiet from a security point of view. Also, the use of explosives to target a civilian bus is something we haven't seen in many years. So let's hope that this does not become the new normal. Today, more than ever, the truth about Israel needs to be heard. We're working hard to make that happen, and we need your help. So please support us through the link that you see at the bottom of the screen, or click the donate button on YouTube, so that together we can continue and bringing you up-to-date and detailed content about what is happening in Israel. Our next story is also from the Gaza Strip, and it's a mixture of comedy and tragedy. For weeks, we have been reporting that Hamas terrorists are growing wary of life in the tunnels that they have built to hide from the IDF, and no one can blame them. The IDF has demolished many of these tunnels, cutting communications between them, as well as electrical power and water supplies. It's hot, dark, dry, and miserable down there in those tunnels. Because of this, the terrorists don't want to hide in the tunnels anymore and have begun to emerge to try and hide amongst Gazan civilian population instead. Now, reports have emerged that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has taken this step as well, hiding amongst the Palestinian civilians disguised as a woman. IDF intelligence shared details about this with the news portal Daily Express on Sunday, adding that capturing or eliminating Sinwar has long been one of their highest priorities. This is believed would be the final blow that would lead to the dissolution of Hamas and ending the war in Gaza. Sinwar appears to share this assessment, as he has added a condition to the ceasefire talks that his personal safety be assured in return for agreeing to the release of the Israeli hostages. An IDF report said that Sinwar was nearly captured in a raid on his tunnel complex earlier this month. There have been several other attempts to capture him, and the IDF has been very close more than once. According to a Sinu Shin Bet source, the IDF has developed technological means to track underground movements, and so Sinwar knows that the tunnels are not safe for him any longer. Meanwhile, despite their total defeat on the battlefield, international sources report that Sinu Hamas officials refused the deal proposed by the negotiations teams and mediators at the summit held in Cairo. According to the Reuters news portal, a Sinu Hamas official who is in contact with the news agency said that Hamas refuses the updated proposals presented to them by the mediators at the summit in Egypt, and that, despite Israel's significant flexibility in the terms of the deal, Hamas remains committed to the conditions presented in the past, including the cessation of hostilities and a total withdrawal from the Strip. In the statement, Hamas stated that the organization remains committed to the offer from July 2nd. All the American statements about an immediate deal are a deception and are said as part of an election campaign. Meanwhile, the Israeli negotiating team sent to Egypt returned after a few hours. The team arrived in Egypt in the late afternoon and, according to reports, left within a few hours, and has now landed in Israel. Further to this, against the background of Hamas's refusal and the continuation of negotiations for a deal, the IDF is deepening its control of the Philadelphia corridor and other strategic points in the Gaza Strip. So let's continue and pray for the safe return of the Israeli hostages back to their loved ones in Israel. Let's pray for the IDF soldiers that are risking their lives every day, defending us in the north, in the south, in the Gaza Strip, and in Judea Samaria. Let's pray for all of our allies that are defending us in the seas and in this region in the Middle East. Let's pray for all the civilians that are harmed by these terrorist organizations. And let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. I want to conclude by paying my last respects to the heroes who fell in defense of the State of Israel in recent days. Staff Sergeant in Reserves, Evyatar Atura, 24 years of age. Sergeant Major in Reserves, Daniel Pechenyuk, 26 years of age. And Sergeant Major in Reserves, Nitai Metodi, 23 years of age. Sergeant Uri Ashkenazi Nehemiah, 19 years of age. Sergeant Amit Sadikov, 20 years of age. Sergeant Major Yaniv Yitzchak Oren, 35 years of age. Master Sergeant Shlomo Yonatan Chazut, 36 years of age. And Sergeant David Moshe Ben Shitrit of the IDF Navy, 21 years of age. Please unite with me in prayer for the families of these brave IDF soldiers who lost their lives defending the State of Israel in this war on all the borders that we are fighting on. Please pray for the civilians that are affected by this conflict on both sides. Please pray for our allies, for wisdom for our leaders, and the most important thing that we can all do is pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and God will win this war for us.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.